All right, ready to unpack this whole property assistant thing.
Let's do it.
You sent over all this stuff from RoleCatcher, their career guide, interview tips. It seems like they've got it all covered.
Yeah, they've really got a handle on the current job market.
But I have to say, when I hear property assistant, my brain goes straight to, like, mountains of paperwork.
Oh, I get it. That stereotypical image.
Is that even remotely close to what it's actually like?
It's definitely a misconception. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some admin stuff. It's part of the deal. But it's way more dynamic. Think of it less as paperwork and more like you're at the center of these big, high-stakes property decisions.
Okay, that already sounds a bit more high stakes than I pictured. What kind of decisions are we talking about here?
So, like, the RoleCatcher guide mentioned advising clients on finances.
Yeah, that caught my eye.
That's not your average assistant task,
Yeah.
right? Or property valuations, that kind of stuff.
No, not at all. It sounds almost strategic.
Exactly. It's about strategy
Yeah.
and having real impact.
Okay, I need an example because now I'm lost. What does that actually look like in practice?
Okay, let's say you've got a client who wants to rent out their condo, right?
Mm-hmm.
The property assistant might be the one researching similar properties in the area, seeing what they're going for.
Right.
They're analyzing market trends, maybe even putting together reports so the client can figure out the best possible rental price.
Wow, I had no clue they were that involved on the financial side of things.
People underestimate it all the time.
Yeah.
And because we're talking about property, there's often a lot of money on the line.
Oh, for sure.
So accuracy is paramount. Attention to detail. It's not just crunching numbers. It's about really building that financial literacy.
And that's a skill that translates to, what, any industry, basically.
Absolutely. And it's not even just about the numbers themselves. You're learning how to take complex financial stuff and explain it clearly to clients that communication is gold.
So it's like a crash course in finance, A&D, client communication, all in one.
You got it.
Impressive. Okay, another thing that jumped out from the RoleCatcher stuff was all about the networking opportunities. How real is that in this field?
Oh, it's very real.
Because networking can sometimes sound vague on paper.
I know what you mean. Let me give you a real-world example.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
So I knew this property assistant started at a small firm, right? She was going to every industry event, networking like crazy. She was hungry.
Love that.
And she ends up chatting with this developer at a conference. They hit it off. Long story short, she ends up as a junior project manager for this huge development project, all because of that connection.
That's amazing. That's exactly the kind of thing I was hoping to hear about.
It happens all the time.
It's not just about the job title itself. It's those hidden connections, the skills you pick up along the way.
100%.
Yeah.
And those connections can open doors you didn't even know existed.
Okay, so we've got the unexpected perks, the potential for growth, but let's be real, no job is perfect, right?
Of course not.
The RoleCatcher guide mentions some potential downsides, like the hours could be long, especially during busy seasons, and I imagine real estate can get pretty hectic.
You're not wrong. It's a fast-paced industry, so yeah, sometimes you've got to be available outside of typical office hours.
Right.
Especially if you're dealing with clients in different time zones, or if something urgent comes up.
Oh, I bet. Like, if a client is freaking out because the dishwasher broke in their rental property, you can't exactly tell them to call back Monday morning.
Exactly. Responsiveness is key, which sometimes means going above and beyond to handle things quickly or adjust to your client's schedule.
So it's that whole balance of being available but also setting boundaries.
Which is a skill in itself, for sure.
Totally. What about the people side of things? I mean, you're dealing with clients, or should I say tenants, as RoleCatcher put it so delicately.
Right, right.
That's going to be one of the biggest challenges, no?
It's funny you say that dealing with people, it's one of the most rewarding parts of the job, but also the most challenging.
I can see that.
People are emotionally invested in their homes, so when things go wrong, emotions can run high.
Oh, I bet. Have you had any experiences where a client interaction just went totally off the rails?
Oh, I'm sure we all have stories like that.
Yeah.
I once had this client who was absolutely convinced that the apartment he was renting was haunted.
Wait, what? Haunted?
Dead serious. He'd call me at all hours of the night, convinced he was hearing strange noises.
No way. Okay, what do you even do in that situation?
Honestly, you just got to be professional and try to be understanding, even if it's a bit out there. I listened to his concerns, reassured him I'd look into it. I even offered to send someone over to check for any obvious issues, just to put his mind at ease.
So diplomacy and a big dose of patience are key in this role.
You got it. You need to be able to handle those tricky situations with grace and, like you said, a lot of patience.
It sounds like you're learning serious conflict resolution skills on the job.
Trial by fire, sometimes. But it's valuable experience. Now, it's not always ghosts and meltdowns. Most of the time, clients are great. But being prepared for those challenging personalities, that's all part of it.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about the highs and lows, the fast-paced environment, the interesting clients. What I'm really curious about now is the career trajectory. The RoleCatcher Guide made it seem like there's a clear path from property assistant all the way up to senior property manager. Is that how it actually works?
It's not always a straight line, which I think can be a good thing. But the opportunities to move up are definitely there.
Okay, so there's hope for ambitious property assistants out there.
Absolutely. Think of it kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure novel. You start as a property assistant, get a taste of everything.
Ooh, I like that analogy. So it's not just climbing a ladder, it's like exploring different paths.
Exactly. As you gain experience, you start to figure out what you're really good at, what you enjoy, and then you can specialize.
So for someone who's just starting out, what are those early decision points? Where do those paths diverge?
One of the first big decisions is usually residential versus commercial real estate.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. What are the main differences between those two paths, and what kind of personality traits might be a better fit for one over the other?
Well, residential real estate, you're working with people and their homes.
Right.
You're dealing with emotions, dreams, maybe even their unique taste in bathroom decor from a certain era.
You had me at unique taste in bathroom decor. I can only imagine the stories.
Oh, there are stories, believe me.
So empathy and patience are key for that side of things, it sounds like. What about commercial real estate? Is it more like all business, big money, cutthroat deals, that kind of vibe?
There's definitely a strong financial element, for sure. You're working with businesses, investors, larger sums of money.
Makes sense.
But it's not just about the numbers. Building relationships, understanding your client's needs, that still matters. Big time.
So the stakes are higher, but those core skills, they still apply.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Within both residential and commercial, there are even more niches you can get into.
Oh, really? Like what?
So in residential, you could focus on luxury properties
Okay.
or affordable housing, vacation rentals, senior livings. Each one has its own quirks and challenges.
Wow, so many options. It's like overwhelming in a good way. All right, let's shift gears for a sec and talk about the elephant, or the algorithm, should I say, in the room.
I know what you're getting at.
AI, right. It's everywhere these days, and real estate's no exception. How is all this tech changing the game for property assistants?
It's a big question, and honestly, it's more about AI giving us better tools to do what we do
Okay.
than it is about replacing humans entirely, at least for now.
Okay, that's reassuring. For a minute there, I was picturing robots showing apartments and, like, negotiating leases.
We're not there yet. Though, to be fair, AI is being used for things like property valuations, market analysis,
Oh, interesting.
even automating some parts of client communication. It's pretty impressive.
So instead of spending hours digging through listings or, manually calculating numbers, a property assistant could potentially be using AI to get that information instantly.
Exactly. Which frees up time for them to focus on more strategic things.
That makes sense.
Building client relationships, maybe even handling those more complex deals. That's where humans still have the edge.
For now, at least.
Yeah.
You mentioned AI automating client communications. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, instead of sending out, say, dozens of follow-up emails by hand, you could use an AI tool to personalize and automate those messages.
That's a huge time saver. It's like having like a virtual assistant who never sleeps. Speaking of AI and the whole job searching process, I have to ask about RoleCatcher. Their platform seems to be all over this AI revolution in recruitment. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think RoleCatcher is a great example of how AI can level the playing field for job seekers.
Okay, how so?
Think about it. Their platform analyzes job descriptions, pulls out the key skills, even gives you feedback on your resume and cover letter, so you're tailoring it to what employers actually want.
So it's like having a career coach and a copywriter all in one.
Pretty much. And that kind of personalized advice used to cost a lot of money. You'd have to hire a professional. Now, with platforms like RoleCatcher, it's way more accessible.
That's a really good point. It's like democratizing access to those resources.
Exactly.
They also have that cool feature where you can practice answering interview questions in like a simulated environment, right?
Yeah, I've seen that. It's surprisingly realistic, actually.
Have you tried it yourself?
I have, yeah. The AI analyzes your responses, how you're speaking, even your body language,
Right.
and then gives you feedback on how to improve.
It's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
Right. It's pretty amazing.
I'm both impressed and slightly terrified at the same time. But seriously, for someone who gets nervous in interviews, that sounds like a game changer.
It really does help build confidence.
Okay, so we've established that AI is a powerful tool, both for those already working in real estate and those hoping to break into the field.
Absolutely.
But it's important to acknowledge that not everyone's comfortable with this level of technology. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling a bit wary of AI, maybe even a little threatened by its potential impact on their career?
I get it. Change can be scary. My advice would be to approach AI with curiosity rather than fear.
Easier said than done for some people, I'm sure.
It's true, but it's about shifting your perspective.
Yeah,
Don't think of AI as this thing that's coming to take your job.
right.
Think of it as a partner that can help you do your job even better.
I like that AI as a partner. Okay, so for someone who's feeling excited about the potential of AI, eager to incorporate it into their work as a property assistant, what would you recommend? Where do they even start?
I'd say start by exploring the different AI tools that are out there. There are some great ones specifically designed for real estate.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, there are platforms that help with property valuation, market analysis, even managing your client relationships. Try them out. See what works for you.
So it's about being proactive, not being afraid to experiment a little.
Exactly. And remember, the AI world is constantly changing, so be prepared to learn as you go.
Right, be adaptable.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to colleagues, mentors, even online communities for advice.
It's all about building that network.
Exactly. There are so many people who are passionate about using AI to transform the real estate industry. You're not alone in this.
That's really encouraging to hear. Okay, I feel like we've covered so much ground today. We've talked about what it's really like to be a property assistant, the good, the bad, the potential career paths, and of course, the ever-evolving role of AI. As we wrap up, what are some final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with as they think about this career path, maybe even consider making a change?
Being a property assistant, it's more than just a job. It's a launch pad into this really exciting, dynamic world of real estate. You wear lots of hats, learn a ton of different skills, build a network that can take you anywhere, but you've got to be willing to put in the work.
No shortcuts.
Exactly. Embrace the challenges, celebrate those wins, and never stop learning. That's key in any field, but especially in real estate, where things are always changing. The future is bright for those who are willing to hustle and embrace those changes.
I love that. Okay, folks, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. Huge thanks to our expert for joining us and sharing so much valuable insight.
Happy to be here.
And of course, to our amazing listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the ever-evolving world of work. It's funny, we often have these preconceived notions about certain careers,
Totally.
but as we've seen with this whole property assistant deep dive, there's often a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Absolutely. It reminds me of those skills sections on job postings. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight within roles you'd never expect.
Exactly. And with the property assistant role, you've highlighted some seriously transferable skills. We talked about communication, negotiation. What are some other gems that someone might not realize they're developing in this role? Things that would look good on any resume.
Well, let's see. Property assistants often deal with lease agreements, contracts,
Right.
maybe even helping with property inspections that translates to a sharp eye for detail,
Mm.
being able to understand legal language,
Oh, for sure.
even spotting potential problems before they become major issues.
It's like they're becoming contract ninjas or something. That's useful way beyond the world of real estate.
Exactly. And on top of that, you've got the financial aspect.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier.
Managing budgets, tracking expenses, handling invoices. Those are valuable skills in any business.
Yeah. It's like a mini MBA on the side, almost. Okay, so we've got the hard skills covered, but you know I'm all about those soft skills.
Of course.
The ones that make you indispensable as a colleague, a team member. How does being a property assistant hone those?
Just think about who they interact with on a daily basis.
Okay, yeah, lots of different personalities.
Demanding clients, contractors, maybe even local officials. It forces you to be adaptable, diplomatic,
Right.
and definitely calm under pressure.
It's like trial by fire, but in a good way. You come out the other side more resilient, more resourceful.
Exactly. And we can't forget the problem-solving aspect. Let's say a pipe bursts in a rental project at the worst possible time.
Oh, I can picture it now.
The property assistant has to think fast, come up with solutions, keep everyone in the loop.
Let's talk about a crash course in crisis management. You know what? After this deep dive, I'm starting to think that a property assistant role could be the perfect training ground for someone who wants to eventually run their own business.
I couldn't agree more. You're developing all these entrepreneurial skills without even realizing it.
It's true.
Managing your time, prioritizing tasks, handling clients, understanding finances, it's a fantastic foundation for anyone with an entrepreneurial spirit.
It's like entrepreneurship in disguise. I love it. Okay, for our listeners who are now inspired, ready to explore this career path, what are some practical steps they can take to get started? Aside from, updating their RoleCatcher profile and practicing their interview skills with their AI chatbot.
Well, networking is always a good idea. Go to industry events. Even virtual ones are a good starting point. Connect with people on LinkedIn, reach out to local real estate agencies, and see if they have any internships or shadowing opportunities.
Soak up all that real-world experience.
Exactly. And don't underestimate informational interviews.
Oh, those can be so helpful.
Reach out to people who are already working as property assistants. Ask them about their day-to-day,
Great advice.
what they find challenging, any advice they'd give to someone starting out. You can learn so much.
And you never know. It might even lead to a job offer down the line.
You never know. It's all about putting yourself out there, showing your enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm goes a long way. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about a career path I knew very little about before.
Glad to hear it. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Hopefully we've inspired some listeners to consider a new path.
I hope so too. And if there's one key takeaway I want our listeners to walk away with, it's that the world of work is changing so fast.
It really is.
And the skills you need to succeed are changing right along with it.
It's not just about what you know anymore. It's about being willing to learn, to adapt, to embrace new technologies.
So well said.
Uh,
Okay, that's a wrap on this deep dive. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us.
My pleasure.
And to our amazing listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the ever-evolving world of work.